Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the best cheap midfielders to own in FPL Game Week 1. Ideally, we'd like to own the most expensive players in the game only, but sometimes you do need those budget enablers to facilitate the rest, and the difference between a good season and a great season can be made by those cheap assets. We're going to analyze all of that today. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, in today's video, we're going to take a look at the best midfielders priced 6 million and under. Don't worry, at some point during pre-season, I'll discuss 6.5 and above, but I feel like that's a little bit easier because obviously the more expensive options are the slightly better ones. It's when you get down to that real sort of budget price of 6 million and below that I think the choice does become a little bit more difficult. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, starting with the £6 million midfielders. We're going to go through some of the data, discuss what season I think they might have, discuss the fixtures that are coming up, and also, of course, the new CBIRT rule, which now rewards midfielders, forwards, defenders for defensive contributions, which we will discuss as well. If you do want to get access to data, if you're thinking, I'd quite like to incorporate data into my decision making, or you just want to get slightly better at FPL, I would recommend checking out Fantasy Football Hub. So during pre-season, they're offering 50% off if you use the link down below in the description. You've just got so much available on their site. So their fixture analyzer, you can change it based on the sample, right? And as soon as you do that, it changes. So if you want a wildcard in Game Week 4, you just look over the first 3 weeks. You can change it by attack, defense. You've got player points predictions as well, if you want to look at that. You've got Opta stats, which is where I spend all of my time. You can build your own custom tables as well. So this is my custom table I use for all of my videos. It's got shots in the box, big chances created, on penalty expected goals. You can look through all of that. You can change it based on home data, away data. You've got so much. I mean, player comparisons where you want to choose between two players, price changes once the season starts. You've got player profiles, which is a really nice little feature as well, where you've got touch maps and these lovely sort of graphs. I mean, there is so much to it, more than you can imagine. Even once the game goes live, more things get added too. So I highly recommend checking it out. The best time to sign up is during pre-season. You get that 50% off. You get all of the value to help you build your Game Week 1 team. Fantasy Football Hub have massively supported my channel over the last few years. And if you want to help me out a little bit, obviously it does help if you use that link down below in the description. But with all of that in mind, let's discuss the first set of players, which are those priced at 6 million. So on this list right now, because again, there are people that listen on audio. If you're listening on audio, please do rate 5-star. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to go and listen on Spotify and Apple. They're now available on there. We have Hudson-Odoi, Damsgaard, McNeil, Minte, Jorginho Ruta, Smith Rowe, and Tielemans. I want to make something very clear. This is not an exhaustive list, right? I've probably missed off some players that you guys like, but I think this covers the main ones. What am I looking for from a midfielder priced around 6 million? I want pretty secure minutes. They don't have to be nailed on because there's probably a reason that they're cheap. One of the reasons may be that they're not fully nailed, but I want them to be expected to start and get like over 70 minutes a game, at least on average. I want them to have a little bit of something in terms of goal threat or assist threat. And then we now have the defensive contribution edition, right? So I want them to have, ideally, unless they're super attacking, the possibility of earning FPL points through defensive contributions. And I also ideally want them to have a decent fixture, or at least decent fixtures over the first 6 to 8 weeks. If they have all of that, they would not be priced 6 million and below. So every single player 6 million and below is missing at least one of those things. Because if they were nailed on with great data and great fixtures, they wouldn't be 6 million. So hopefully that's clear. What I found interesting is of all of the £6 million mids that I've listed here, the highest owned is 2.3%. So not many people are picking this 6 million price tag, but I think there are some real gems here. We'll start with Hudson-Odoi. I like Hudson-Odoi because I think he's got a high ceiling in terms of he's a very explosive player. We know he's very attacking in comparison to other players that I'll discuss today, like Caicedo and Baleba. Hudson-Odoi is a very attacking player. And in the absence of Alanga, you would expect him to take the reins for Nottingham Forest in terms of leading that charge, on the counter-attack where they're so effective. Unless they suddenly change the way they play, Hudson-Odoi is probably going to be the outlet. So I expect his minutes to go up slightly. My concern, and it's always been why I've picked Alanga over Hudson-Odoi, especially last season, Hudson-Odoi's data has always been rubbish. He's got 0.2 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. If you're new to data, hopefully I can explain what that means. It means if he plays 90 minutes in every game, he'll accumulate 1 expected goal involvement every 5 games. Now, bear in mind that he doesn't get 90. You're probably looking at one attacking return every 8 to 10 games based on the amount of minutes he's had, based on underlying data from last season. So maybe it won't pan out that way. Maybe it will be slightly better this year, and I would hope that it would. But that's the only thing that slightly puts me off is he doesn't really get a higher number of chances because that's the way that Forest play at the end of the day. What I do like, according to Fantasy Football Hub, Forest are top of the fixture ticker over the first 6 game weeks. I think there are slightly better options on this list, though, and one of those is actually Damsgaard. Damsgaard had over 10 assists in the Premier League last season, and as much as I expect a drop-off from Brentford, I think Damsgaard will still have a really decent number of goals and assists, mainly in the assist category. He takes some set pieces. There is a chance, if Wissa leaves, by the way, a small chance that he could take penalties. Look at him, 0.21 expected assist per 90. That's pretty decent. 0.08 non-penalty expected goals isn't great, but that gives him a greater sort of goal involvement expected than Hudson-Odoi. And then what I love, look how high his CBI RT is. So to remind you, if a midfielder or a forward gets 12 plus clearances, blocks, interceptions, ball recoveries and tackles in a single game, 12 plus, they will get 2 FPL points. Damsgaard averaged 10.23 last season. This is a player that, yes, he's a tricky little player that will get lovely assists, but due to the way that Brentford plays, he gets very involved. Now, without Thomas Frank in charge, with Keith Andrews coming in, it might be that they suddenly change the way they play slightly and this number drops. But there is a chance that he does occasionally get you those 2 FPL points as well. So I actually have him up there as one of the better £6 million mids for that creativity, the set pieces, and also the chance for ball recoveries, adding to that total points as well. Total. Dwight McNeil's an interesting one. You've got Iliman Ndiaye at 6.5 million, so it does feel a little bit difficult to justify going for McNeil, but you can see here he's very creative. He's always extremely good for assists, takes set pieces himself. I think he'll probably play the number 10 role, I would imagine more so this season than playing out wide due to the players that they've signed and the players that they have. So yeah, I absolutely think he'll probably do quite well this season. I think he could probably add to his goal tally, and he's always going to be good. I reckon he'll get at least 7 or 8 assists. So Dwight McNeil has to be up there. But again, if you're paying that price for a Everton attacker, comparatively, I prefer some of the other options, even a Barry or a Beto as the forwards, if they end up looking like they're going to be nailed on. But I do like Dwight McNeil. I just think he doesn't overly excite me. You've got 2 from Brighton then, in Yankuba Minte and Jorginho Ruta. I think the pair of them could be really exciting. I'll tell you what my concern is with Brighton. They've got so many players, right? Minte, Jorginho, Matoma, Enciso, Buonanotte have returned. You've got Welbeck, you've got Costulas, the new player that they've signed, Ayari, Gruder. Some of these players will play deeper. Some of them will not start. You'd imagine that someone like an Enciso won't just go straight back into the team. But they just have so many players. That's the only thing that's putting me off. Because in my latest team, and if you've not yet seen, yesterday I released my latest FPL draft, Yankuba Minte is in there. He's my 6 million of choice at the moment. That's just because I like him as a player. But when you look at 57 minutes per game last season, he's just not very nailed on. And at the start of the season, I always say it's a big mistake taking too many risks with minutes. But when you look at the underlying data, he has the best non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 of anyone on this list. 0.44. That is better than a £6 million midfielder. At that sort of underlying data level, if he gets consistent minutes, he should be a little bit higher than that. He's also not awful for defensive contributions, 9.02 per 90. So, yeah, I like Yankuba Minte. I like Jorginho Ruta. When they play, they're really, really decent. I just don't know how secure their minutes will be. But if you feel like you can make a confident prediction, I don't mind. But maybe at that point, again, if you can stretch the extra 0.5, you go for Matoma, who's probably going to be more nailed on, or maybe someone like a Danny Welbeck. Then I've put Smith Rowe in here. I had actually originally had Hwang, but I'll discuss when we look at the Wolves midfielders at the 5.5. I'm just not sure on Hwang's minutes. He didn't play much last season, and I know Cunha's gone, but I don't think all of a sudden that means he just steps in, especially with the signing of Arias. So I actually replaced Hwang with Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe started the season unbelievably last year, but not only did his underlying data drop off a cliff, but his minutes did as well. He started getting benched in consecutive games. You can see here 60 minutes per game is not a particularly good number to read. But again, none of these players are going to have that high, or they'll have absolutely no attacking threat. You got to find that balance here. And at least with Smith Rowe, we know he's good for baseline bonus. We know he can get a 10-pointer from one return. And because Fulham don't score lots of goals, he often does go and get 2 or 3 bonus. So I don't mind a shout on Smith Rowe, but I think at that point, I'd rather go for someone else, even at a cheaper price. I would say arguably having done this research, maybe now my favourite 6 million, or definitely in my top 3, is actually Yuri Tielemans. He's definitely the most nailed on. Like 84 minutes per game. Immediately the only player here in the 80s. Like comfortably the most nailed on. Takes some set pieces. Decent creativity. We know he's fantastic from outside the box. And he's also approaching that sort of 10 mark for CBIT per 90. CBIRT per 90. So he will get you some defensive contribution points as well. We also know that Aston Villa across the opening 8 weeks have exceptional fixtures. If you change it from the first 6 to the first 8, they all of a sudden go top for fixture difficulty. So they have really nice fixtures. He's very nailed on, and Aston Villa are a good team, and I think he'll chip in with attacking returns. And he can occasionally, if Rodgers is pushed out to the wing because they don't sign any wingers to replace the likes of Asensio and Rashford, we could see Tielemans occasionally playing that number 10 role as well. So I think he's got to be up there for me. So if I was to recap the £6 million midfielders, I don't think any of them are true standouts, which is why the most highly owned is Hudson-Odoi at 2.3%. But I would say that my top 3, as of right now, are probably Tielemans, Damsgaard, and Yankuba Minte. If Minte's minutes were more secure, I'd have him top. But after doing this research, he probably is third for me. And I would probably go for Damsgaard or Tielemans, just for that security of minutes. Because we're looking at per 90 data here. But if these players aren't getting anything close to 90, then per 90 data is relatively useless, right? It's not going to help us much. It's actually going to skew our thinking in the wrong direction. We'd then start looking at per game data, and then it looks a lot more dicey for these players. So I think minutes are extremely important for these cheaper midfielders. And so yeah, Damsgaard and Tielemans would be towards the top for me. So that's the 6 million mids. We're going to look at the 5.5s and the 5s, and then at the end, I'll do a bit of a summary in terms of my favourites taken into account price. Let me know if any of them stand out to you, and let me know if I've missed anyone. So guys, I won't take you away from the video for long, but can I please ask, if you've watched to this point in the video and you're not yet subscribed and you've actually enjoyed today's video, please do consider subscribing. It massively supports me. It's completely free to do, and you can always change your mind at a later date. Thank you very much if you did subscribe. Now back to the video. So we just discussed the 6 million mids, and really, in theory, they should be better than the 5.5 million mids, right? I actually think the more that I look into this, 5.5 is the price point. I think if you're paying 6, a lot of these 5.5s are arguably as good, if not slightly better, which kind of reflects in their ownership. Or you just try and stretch to the 6.5s, like, again, NDI or Kudus, or even someone like an Ahmad after that Game Week 1 fixture. I think there are enough options at that price. But these 5.5s are seriously interesting. So how I've done this is I've sort of separated it into 2 groups. So the top 4 on this list are more defensive-minded, sort of not necessarily CDMs, but players that you're picking mainly for the possibility of attacking returns, but for those DEFCON points. They're picking up defensive contributions. And then the bottom 4 players on the list are players that have better underlying data and more attacking, but obviously have a slightly lower chance of getting those defensive contribution points. So the top 4 players are Anderson, Reinders, Tonali, and Caicedo. They're my 4 favourite 5.5s if you're looking for a combination of everything. I know Zubamendi's not on there. I just need to see more from him. I need to know exactly how he fits that system. Same with Norgard as well. But that's why I've not gone for any of the Arsenal sort of defensive players. And then I've got Adingra, Arias, Menetzi, and Marlon as the 4 sort of more attacking 5.5 players. So starting with those players that are really decent for defensive contributions, or I expect to be this season, Anderson does still seem like the standout for me. He had really good success rate for defensive contributions last season. So not only is he averaging 12.2, so he's averaging above that threshold per 90. Again, he doesn't tend to get exactly 90, but per 90 he's averaging just over 12. He also had a 54.5% success rate last season. So over half of his games that he started last season, he achieved the 2 FPL points. That is pretty big. In fact, only Caicedo achieved more total defensive contribution points, but remember, he did start more games than Anderson. So I think he's getting in for a really good season. We've spoken about the fixtures opening up for Forest, and he's on set pieces as well. Not many of the other players that are good for defensive contribution points also take set pieces. So I think set pieces, a little bit of creativity, but we're not talking about much here, but also good for clean sheet points, because Forest defend well, and also CBI RT per 90. I think we're looking at a very decent asset at 5.5. I don't think Anderson's a game breaker. He started off super differential and he's almost getting overhyped now amongst content creators. He's good, not great. He'll do a job at 5.5. And I feel like that about the other 3, in Reinders, Tonali, and Caicedo. None of them have especially fantastic attacking data. Of the 4, I do think Reinders will stand out because he's not really a 6. He's more of an 8. And I expect Rodri to just sit there as he does so fantastically. And so whilst I expect Reinders might line up alongside Rodri, we saw for Milan, he's a player that gets forward a hell of a lot. He's not just going to sit back. I think he'll add attacking returns. He had a crazy number of shots last season in the Serie A. We can see here his attacking data's decent, 0.22 non-penalty expected goals per 90. We need to see how that translates into how he plays for Man City. But if he's playing more defensive, he'll get more defensive contribution points. If he's playing more attacking, he might get some attacking points. I just worry with Man City players. He could conceivably play Bernardo Silva rather than Reinders quite comfortably, right? He doesn't have to play any of his players ever, Pep, which is always the big concern for me. Tonali seems pretty nailed on for 90 minutes, to start, but not always for 90 minutes. He's got a bit of attacking threat, more than someone like an Anderson, over double the goal threat, but slightly lower defensive contributions per 90. So it's like you get a little bit more attacking threat, but you get a little bit of a lower chance of getting those defensive contribution points. It's about the weighing that up. But also Newcastle's fixtures aren't great to start the season. So I think to start the season, I'd rather Anderson. And then with Caicedo, I just think he's even less attacking than Anderson. And Anderson doesn't carry much, but Caicedo really feels for me, you are going all in on just trying to get those 2 points. Like you're really not getting many attacking returns for him. So I don't mind that. Chelsea will have a decent season, I believe, and he can score the odd goal. We've seen it with him for both Brighton and for Chelsea, but I just don't see that happening too often. So I think out of those defensive players, for me, Anderson is top, and then I'd be tempted to take a risk on Reinders, but Anderson just stands out. Then in terms of the 4 more attacking players, I think Adingra, Arias, Menezes and Marlon all look really interesting, but I think the 2 A's, Adingra and Arias, for me, stand out. Adingra is a quality player. I'm surprised that Brighton sold him. I'm surprised he's gone to Sunderland, but he could do really well there. You can see here, really decent underlying data, 0.22 non-penalty expected goals, 0.23 expected assists. He's got a bit about him. I don't expect him to get many defensive contribution points, but Sunderland have really good fixtures to start the season, and you would imagine that it'll be pretty nailed on for them. Given the price they paid, given the other options that they've got, they've done really well to recruit in the midfield. Right, they've just signed Xhaka at the time of recording. They signed today. He's not yet in the game, of course. That'll be interesting. But they've not got too many wingers and attackers, so I expect him to start most games. On Arias, I've not watched too much of him, but he seems like a very exciting player. I would temper your expectations, though. He's not a player that's had tons of attacking returns across his career. He's got a bit of creativity, a bit of flair. I think he's basically their Cunha replacement. They've tried to get a player that has that X factor, that flair, and someone that will bring a bit of excitement to their attacks. My concern with Arias and both Menezes and Bellegarde and Hwang is what I've just said, right? You've got Arias, Menezes, Bellegarde, Hwang, Guedes, Strand Larsen. They're not going to play all of these players. So as much as Menezes' minutes were super strong last season, as much as Bellegarde, when Cunha was out, was getting good minutes, they all worry me. Strand Larsen's the only one that I just don't see being really rotated. But the rest of those midfielders, there is a bit of a risk. But I just think Arias coming in, there's a lot of excitement around him. I think he'll probably nail down a starting place the most out of all of the other options. If you're looking for the highest ceiling out of the £5.5 million midfielders, is Donyell Marlon, 0.64 non-penalty expected goals per 90 last season. Now, he only actually started 3 games and played fewer than 300 minutes, so it's a very small sample size. But whenever you watch Marlon, even in pre-season, Marlon just tears it up. He's such a good player. I felt really bad for him last season when they signed Asensio and Rashford on loan because it just meant that he wasn't going to get minutes. But they've now lost Rashford, they've lost Asensio, and as of right now, me recording this on Monday the 28th of July, they have not yet signed viable alternatives on loan or bought. So you have to imagine Marlon gets more minutes and more chances this season. I really like Donyell Marlon, but again, he averaged 21 minutes per game last season. So I don't know if that's a risk I want to take in game week 1. Like, I love Konsa, Rodgers and Watkins. If I want to own 3 Villa, they all come ahead of Marlon for me. So if I'm to recap the 5.5s and then maybe discuss them in relation to the 6 millions, Anderson is still the standout for me at 5.5. I don't mind a punt on Reinders, and Tonali and Caicedo would do a job, but I think Anderson and Reinders there. And then if you want to take an exciting attacking punt, I think Adingra and Arias will have better minutes than Marlon, and I think Adingra has probably got the slightly better minutes just because of how important he's going to be to Sunderland, I think. So I think right now, if I was to give you my top 4 5.5s, it'd be Anderson, Reinders, Adingra, Arias. Then if I compare them to the 6 millions, I'm changing daily on how I feel about this, but I kind of feel like all 4 are at least level to the likes of Minte, Hudson-Odoi, all of those options that I just mentioned at 6 million. So maybe you just go down to 5.5. Maybe the reason those 6 millions aren't particularly highly owned is because these 5.5s offer very similar value for 0.5 million less, which can make a huge difference in your Game Week 1 teams. So yeah, as sad as it is, because a lot of people are saying it, Anderson is the standout 5.5 for me like right now. Let me know if there's anyone else on this list that you like. And of course, let me know if there's someone that I've missed off that you want me to talk about in future videos. So I'll be honest, the reason I did it back to front is I thought I genuinely can't start a video with this sorry graphic and discuss the 5 million and sub mids. I just couldn't start the video with it, which is why I did it in a really back to front way. So finishing with the 4.5 to 5 million mids, I'll be honest, it's a bit of a dire situation. There really aren't many standouts. When I look at the 4.5s, I don't see anyone. Interestingly, of all midfielders priced 4.5 to 6 million, Aaron Ramsey of Burnley, that is the most highly owned. I think people are just looking for a 4.5 that plays. Now, I think he'll start, but I also went onto Twitter, because obviously he's coming back from a long-term injury. I went onto Twitter and looked at 2 Burnley accounts doing their predicted 11 for the start of the season, and Ramsey wasn't even there. So I don't know if that's, again, I've not looked into this enough because I'm not a Burnley fan and I'm not going to pick him, but I don't know if that's because he's still returning and they're not sure if he'll be ready, or if it's because they don't think he's nailed on. But regardless, I just see absolutely no world in which picking a 4.5 makes sense. Some of these 5s are actually okay, and the 5.5s are really decent. Find that extra 0.5 or 1 million. If you're going to take one bit of advice from me today, don't go into the season with a 4.5 unless in the next 2 weeks a really viable 4.5 arises. Maybe during pre-season something happens, a 4.5 pops up. By all means at that point do it. But if the season were to start now, I would heavily advise investing in a 5. And as you can see, all 5 millions that I've listed here in Baleba, Onana, Christie, and Enzo Lafay, they are all averaging in and around that sort of 12 mark for CBIRT per 90. And by the way, I should note, the CBIRT per 90 stats that I got, I'll try to remember to link it in the description, is from a guy over on Blue Sky called Sam. It didn't sound like he wanted much credit for it, but he just put out this spreadsheet that he'd very brilliantly put together with all of the data, even from players that didn't play in the Premier League last season. So I'll try to remember to link it, but if not, go onto my Blue Sky, and I reposted it on my Blue Sky account. I don't think he's active on Twitter. Anyway, he's really well put this together, and all of these are averaging in and around the 12 mark. So Baleba, 12.32, Onana, 11.49, Christie, 11.23, and Enzo Lafay, 11.67. Now, obviously, Lafay in particular, and by the way, apparently it is Lafay, not Lafay. I've looked into it. Lafay will be... We need to see how he gets on in the Premier League. Obviously, he hasn't played too many games for Sunderland. They've obviously signed Diarra and Xhaka, so if he plays a more advanced role, might he do a little bit less of that? We have to wait and see. But I think all of them will get you a decent number of defensive contribution points. So who would I go for? My least favourite is Onana, and that's based on minutes, because I think Kamara, McGinn, Tielemans are all capable of playing the defensive midfield role. Like, if you said that they set up with Tielemans and Kamara with 3 midfielders like McGinn, Ramsey, Rodgers, and then Watkins, I would say, yeah, that's absolutely fair. Like, they don't need to play Onana. And you can see last season he had 62 minutes per game. So for me, as much as he could start the season, he's the least nailed on of the 4. So he would be last. So it's between Baleba, Christie, and Lafay. I think Christie's minutes will shoot up this season. When Christie's in the team, Bournemouth look a lot better. He's got decent creativity, a little bit of goal threat, but the fixtures also aren't perfect for me to start the season for Bournemouth. Fantasy Football Hub having them in 13th. I would say that's about right. I much prefer the fixtures personally myself for Sunderland and for Brighton. I think Baleba is much more likely to get you the defensive contribution points. I know it looks close here, but if I was to put my reputation on the line and guess, I would say Baleba will significantly outperform Lafay for defensive contribution points this season. But I feel like Lafay will take some set pieces, get more involved in the action, because again, if he's got Xhaka and Diarra potentially behind him, he's going to play a more advanced role in that sort of number 10 position. I think he'll also get you more attacking returns. And again, when I look at the fixtures to start the season for Sunderland, I really do like them. So it's of course a risk. You might just think, yeah, but Brighton are a better team, so I back Baleba more. Absolutely fine. So for me, if I was to rank the £5 million and below midfielders, it would be Enzo Lafay, Baleba, Christie, Onana, and then any 4.5. But in all honesty, none of them look particularly good. So to round that all up towards the end of the video, I would say that my favourite midfielder 6 million and below is Anderson. And then after that, I probably would take a risk on someone like an Adingra or an Enzo Lafay, given the fixtures. I think they're really decent. And in fact, in my latest draft, I've taken out Yankuba Minte, not because I don't think he's good. His data's great, but slight worry about minutes. And also, I just want to save a bit of money to upgrade the rest of my team. And I've put in one of those Sunderland boys. But I would love to know what you think. Belabor is also in my thinking too. And I'm sure more midfielders will pop up during pre-season. If there are any midfielders that I didn't discuss today, please let me know down below in the comments. I'll respond to your comment. I would have missed some players. And let's just keep an eye out during the pre-season games. You don't need to make this decision now. I'm making this content for the entertainment and also for the information. But so much can change in the next few weeks. Don't stress over these micro decisions. I would spend more time at the moment fixating on things like, what is the price point I want? What is the general structure? What is my chip strategy? That will serve you much better right now. So guys, there you have it. Those are the best cheap midfielders to buy, I think, in FPL at the moment. But of course, like I said, this will change over the coming weeks. So make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of that content. And drop a like on the video if you're already subscribed, because that's the main thing you need to do. Drop a like on the video. I would really appreciate it. Also, feel free to hit that bell. The bell basically lets you know when one of my videos goes live. It just means that you make sure that you don't miss any of them during pre-season. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.